Hello, my name is Rachel. Welcome to Aussie eCommerce Mum a Diary. This is episode 7. Why are crafts life-changing? I've always loved crafting, and if you're listening, perhaps you love to craft too, or perhaps you're thinking it may be something you'd like to start. I'd like to share with you my love for papercrafts and bullet journaling and the various life-changing benefits to crafting that I see and have experienced. I think crafts take different forms as the years go by. They morph and become in vogue or trending, and then they drop away and become out of vogue. But then they come back again. The same or similar craft can actually mean different things to you at different stages in your life. That's something I'd like to chat to you about. So this is not specific to paper crafting as much as it's specific to crafting and hobbies overall. So I'm going to use the word hobby and crafting. They're interchangeable. I'm probably going to use the word crafting more, but you could swap that word out for a hobby that you have or are thinking of starting. Have you noticed recently on TV the obsession with crafters? I love how the big streaming services are featuring some amazing crafting shows and competitions lately, probably in a bit of like a reality TV style format, but also it's like a bit of a documentary crossover. Something that anybody who's into crafts totally understands and appreciates. The self-care and contemplative nature of working something with your hands and your imagination. Often crafting or making something is being creative and artistic can draw us back to a bit of a childlike headspace where we have no cares in the world. And seeing that process for others on TV shows is really inspiring for me. I love shows like, I think it's called The Glass Blowers on Netflix, and the latest one I found that I've watched is The Great Pottery Throwdown on Foxtel, and I'm sure there's heaps of others out there too. I know the Great British Bake Off is pretty popular, that sort of springs to mind, and baking has definitely got a real artistic hobby component to it. When I'm working on a craft project, things happen that just makes the whole process really enjoyable and worthwhile for me. My heart stops racing, so like my whole heart slows down. I feel my breath rate slow down, but my imagination starts to fire. My brain's going and thinking of things and being creative. My senses are all alive and I'm focused on this one small part of my world. It's actually really relaxing. It's incredibly focus driven, but it helps me unwind and all the worries of the world just fade. And if you craft, I bet you that's something you love about crafting. And inflow is a state of mind. It's something that's described by people who craft, absolutely, or have hobbies. But you may also feel like your mind is in flow if you're working on a big project at work and say you've been working on it for a period of time on a particular day and you just say out of the blue, wow, I'm on a roll. Sometimes I catch myself doing that. You sort of feel like your brain is just ticking over. You're getting things sorted, things are just coming to you really easily, and you smashing out heaps of stuff in what feels like a blink of an eye, but could have been hours. Time can fly by, and sometimes you're not even aware of how much time has gone by. That's sort of in flow. I feel like the world shrinks away when that happens, and all that matters is what's right in front of me. My two hands and what I'm working on and crafting or creating or solving. It's really pleasurable with a feeling at the end, a sense of accomplishment and real pride in whatever it is I've created. Sounds pretty good, hey? So in today's language, although this word didn't get used at all really when I first found my love for paper crafts, would be that crafting is a mindfulness exercise. It's a form of self-care. And that's crafting in general and probably hobbies in general, really. And if that seems hard to comprehend for crafting, perhaps think about it for something you love, or that perhaps you have a hobby in gardening or baking or writing or even like hiking or surfing. All those things, when you think about it probably really objectively and why it is you love it and why it's very restorative for you, is probably because it's quite a mindfulness exercise. The life-changing benefits of crafting come in the making. In other words, the end result can be great or the end result can be really crappy, or more often than not, the end result's unfinished, if I'm being honest. But it's benefited me just as much. The wake of projects behind me as a crafter is either good, bad, indifferent, finished or not finished. In fact, I never feel the sense that the time was ever wasted. No way. That sort of never comes to mind. And for most crafters, that probably never comes to mind either, because it's in the crafting that it totally benefits our lives. Crafts have changed over time too, and they can mean different things to us when we're at different stages in our lives. For me, as a little girl, I loved stationery. I used to collect stickers, and I would buy really fancy ones from the local stationery store or the newsagent. When I was little, I always wanted to own a stationery store, and I guess now, when I'm typing this up to share with you and thinking about it, I guess I do. I continued to love stationery all through my teenage years and early adulthood, and I'd always get an adrenaline rush when we would go and buy new stationery for the school year, and I'd get to see what my friends had with their funky new stationery at school too. My husband and I are planning a trip to Tokyo in a few years, and I'm not going to lie, one of the things I'm looking forward to most is the mammoth-sized stationery stores. Then the passion for stationery in general sort of morphed into something more specific, which was scrapbooking. Yeah, who used to scrapbook? Or who still does scrapbook? Let me know, I'd love to hear if you scrapbook. This leads me to another benefit of crafting. It's the chance to wrap up family, memories and love and nostalgia into a project. Like, wow, that's incredible to think that those feelings about something, a time in your life, can be encapsulated into an actual project you have created with your two hands. What a feeling to craft something and journal about it with photos of your kids or a family holiday, and make an actual record of your story and your family's stories, like a time capsule. But better than a time capsule, because you're not burying it anywhere. It's on your shelf to display, to look through, and to reminisce about, and to draw back all those wonderful feelings that you have captured in the project you have crafted. I'm crafting memories, and that association with the project and an intense emotional feeling is food for the soul for sure. Like a doily maybe your grandma made with her own two hands and gifted you, or a quilted blanket from your sister, or a painting from your mum. Those things are precious. Scrapbooking was really on trend. It was huge when I was running craft classes and teaching scrapbooking projects to groups of ladies in the early 2000s. And then it kind of changed a bit. Like I said, crafts tend to morph over time. So it sort of morphed into more stamping, which started to go hand in hand with scrapbooking. The only downside to this, I think now looking back, was I think the projects themselves and the benefit of the crafting process started to become more about the aesthetic of the finished product and the technical difficulty of the finished product, rather than the people involved, the crafters and their memories that they were capturing on those pages, and the therapeutic benefit for the crafters in the whole creative process. This was disappointing for me to see, but I quickly discovered a new way to get my own unique life story onto paper, which was bullet journaling. If you haven't heard of bullet journaling before, if you're a paper crafter of any kind, I am sure you have. It was created in, I believe, 2015 by someone called Ryder Carroll. He created the whole process of bullet journaling. It's a free-form planning system. It suits anyone really, because it can suit what you need it to. It suits someone like me perfectly, because each day, each layout looks different, and it looks how I want to in the moment on the day. There's literally no rules. You add your to-do list to your bullet journal, a gratitude log, maybe a calendar, a bucket list, literally anything goes. He created it as an overall planning system that wasn't locked into, like a traditional planner with pages and dates and calendars. It's already mapped out for you. This became way more flexible then, because say one day I'm in a meeting and I'm taking a page of notes. In a regular diary or yearly planner, that just wouldn't really work. Or the notes would be at the back of the book, and how useless is that? You want them there on the day you're doing the work. A bullet journal, you can just use as many pages as you want, or none, or a tiny bit, depending on what you're doing for the day. So it sits outside the usual structured planners like a Filofax or a KikiK or a Happy Planner. It's very different, but I love how it fits with scrapbooking and stamping because it's very creative. the new wave of paper crafting is definitely bullet journaling, but now even more recently, I think junk journaling and mixed media journaling is sort of like the next iteration on the free form crafting that bullet journaling was. I love the continued move that we're taking to no rules. You do what interests you, add what you want to your own book, your own journal, because it's your life and your memories. I use a lot of ephemera in my journal, which ephemera is a funky term for junk. Everyday bits and pieces of stuff that have memories associated with them and just remind you of something that day, something that happened, that just look nice, you want to keep them. They're memory triggers for me. They bring back great memories and experiences. Like I have a scrap piece of paper from a girls' trip to Sydney I took. I think it was in 2017. And I have that safe inside a really cute little envelope that I dyed with coffee. If you've heard of that, you can, coffee dyed paper or tea stained paper. And it's in one of my journals sitting proudly on my bookshelf. Through 2020, all the crafts had a massive spike in popularity. If you look at any Google Trends type mapping, you will see that any craft just went bonkers. We were all at home with so much more time and were looking for something to do to take our minds off the world around us. I know friends who started writing, making resin jewellery and resin homewares, keeping plants, crocheting or knitting, doing jigsaws and doing diamond art painting. So if you're thinking starting a journal will be your sort of craft, maybe you're into stickers and papers and stationery, maybe you also have a bit of a planning edge to you where you like to be organised, send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. One of my e-commerce brands is a vintage journaling papercraft store, and my most popular product is actually called the Vintage Ephemera Craft Mystery Box. And I think that's because it's full of little bits and pieces of crafty stuff. So you can use them in making cards, doing your journaling, a craft project, just a general craft project with your kids, a gratitude log, a planner, what else, scrapbooking, like all that sort of stuff. I've had a few emails in the last 2 years from customers who specifically purchased the Vintage Ephemera Craft Mystery Box because they were looking to get started in junk journaling to help them relax and to record special memories in their life. That sense of nostalgia, which I just love. So in wrapping up this episode, let's do a little reflection. Question number 1, why? Why get into crafting? For me, it's really fun. You get to learn new things while being creative and engaging your imagination. Number 2, is this an income generating activity? No, definitely not. If it was, I think it would lose some of its magic. Question 3, are there any cons or downsides to crafting? You know what? I think the only con could be money. I think it can be a black hole. Like, to be honest, if you haven't got a budget, how often have we all gone a bit nuts in purchasing stuff for crafts that we already do or a new craft that we want to start? So yes, that is definitely a downside. You need to set yourself a budget because it can get pretty out of control. And I think one of the other downsides is there's probably too many crafts for me to try and to learn and not enough years left in my life. And are these downsides okay? Well, yes, of course, because they can be managed. And I don't need to learn every craft in the world. I'm probably pretty happy with the ones I'm good at now and that I'm learning more about as years go on and that bring benefit to my life. And I have a budget, which is important. So I'm not spending more than I should be on crafts. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode. This was a bit different. This podcast is as much a therapeutic brain download for me as I hope it's an encouragement for you as we spent this time together. Head to my website where you can join my newsletter or send me an email because I would really love to hear from you. Head to aussieecommercemum.com.au and I'll see you next time. Keep learning. Hello, my name is Rachel. Welcome to Aussie eCommerce Mum a Diary. This is episode 7. Why are crafts life-changing? I've always loved crafting, and if you're listening, perhaps you love to craft too, or perhaps you're thinking it may be something you'd like to start. I'd like to share with you my love for papercrafts and bullet journaling and the various life-changing benefits to crafting that I see and have experienced. I think crafts take different forms as the years go by. They morph and become in vogue or trending and then they drop away and become out of vogue. But then they come back again. The same or similar craft can actually mean different things to you at different stages in your life. That's something I'd like to chat to you about. So this is not specific to paper crafting as much as it's specific to crafting and hobbies overall. So I'm going to use the word hobby and crafting. They're interchangeable. I'm probably going to use the word crafting more, but you could swap that word out for a hobby that you have or are thinking of starting. Have you noticed recently on TV the obsession with crafters? I love how the big streaming services are featuring some amazing crafting shows and competitions lately, probably in a bit of like a reality TV style format, but also it's like a bit of a documentary crossover. Something that anybody who's into crafts totally understands and appreciates. The self-care and contemplative nature of working something with your hands and your imagination. Often crafting or making something is being creative and artistic can draw us back to a bit of a childlike headspace where we have no cares in the world. And seeing that process for others on TV shows is really inspiring for me. I love shows like, I think it's called The Glass Blowers on Netflix, and the latest one I found that I've watched is The Great Pottery Throwdown on Foxtel, and I'm sure there's heaps of others out there too. I know the Great British Bake Off is pretty popular, that sort of springs to mind, and baking has definitely got a real artistic hobby component to it. When I'm working on a craft project, things happen that just makes the whole process really enjoyable and worthwhile for me. My heart stops racing, so like my whole heart slows down. I feel my breath rate slow down.